Hello, everyone. I'm Lisa Parenteau, and I'd like to welcome you to Lifting Others as We Rise, the podcast where we dive into the world of real estate and the power of positive thinking. In each episode, we're going to bring you inspiring conversations with real estate professionals and other thought leaders who have really harnessed the power of lifting others up along their journeys. So let's get ready to elevate our mindset. Lifting Others as We Rise podcast, where inspiration is a catalyst for action. Let's go. Welcome to Lifting Others as We Rise podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Parenteau, realtor, team leader, CRS broker associate, but most importantly, Glamma here on beautiful Cape Cod in Massachusetts. Glamma to beautiful Eloise Ann, and there's another one on the way, which changes all things for sure. But I'm thrilled to welcome you to today's episode of our podcast. I know you're going to enjoy our guest today. So get comfy and settle in, whether you're at the gym or whether you're just sitting around at home with a cup of tea or getting ready to start a Zoom or driving. My intention, as always, is for us to discover some inspiration and some catalysts for change in the stories of real estate leaders. And today, my guest is Rob McGarty. Rob is from the Seattle market, the other side of the country. Thank you so much in advance, Rob, today for joining us. He's the founder and designated broker of Bushwick. We'll learn a little bit about that, a boutique real estate firm in the Seattle market. More interesting, or as interesting to me, is that Rob was one of the first Redfin agents. So that's a very interesting piece of the story. But I also noticed that he also has served as an angel investor and startup advisor. So lots of stuff going on there, Rob. Can't wait to hear about that. And that sounds like a lot of interesting pivots and catalysts for change. And welcome to today's podcast.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lisa. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about how you found yourself. I saw over your decades, you've been involved in business and real estate in a sense, but how did you go from kind of angel investing and Redfin to where you are today?
It's been quite a journey. So let's take a step back from there. I've got a bachelor's of science in electrical engineering, which I'm not using whatsoever. Out of school, I did a couple internships at Intel, large kind of tech company, realized I didn't want to be stuck in an office all day in the cube farm, went into enterprise software consulting, which I was on a plane every week, flying to different areas, doing consulting on manufacturing, mostly manufacturing software for big food and beverage manufacturers. So you think like the top end of the supply chain, like Cargill and those kinds of companies. Got sick of flying every week after about 7 or 8 years and bought my first house and was like, hey, it's really super fun experience. I love working on houses, did a lot of remodeling and just got the real estate bug. Got my license, was sort of trying a model of the professional services I was doing with software consulting, with real estate, thinking outside the box, being like, hey, what if we did more of a professional service model like a lawyer or whatnot on fee for service? Totally did not work. Nobody wanted to do that.
At that time, what was the year, if I can interrupt for 1 second? What was the year then?
That was probably like 2004, 2005.
Okay, because your story is really very similar to our founder, Glenn Sanford, but I'll go there in a moment.
Okay, cool. Then, I started something I called it Hourly Agents. I thought it was going to be clever and it would be great. Total flop. But at the time, I had some friends who were starting this company called which ended up being called Redfin, and they were building a real estate search site. Back then, the search site was, if you go back 20 plus years in computer technology, it was what was called a fat client, which was you had an application on your computer that was running this map rendering thing with some listings on it, not web-based at all. Anyway, got interested with those guys. They went through a couple transitions. Couple groups of friends were no longer friends. The company was on the ground, barely surviving. They brought in a new CEO who is Glenn Kelman, who's still there today. And then my first work with Redfin was on the technology side. So I was actually doing some software consulting, helping them bring the data in to keep the website up. Then after kind of Glenn reorganized stuff and started getting the business going again, if you will, they wanted to start doing brokerage services. So at the time they had a rent-a-broker, somebody so they could get the data feed, but they weren't doing any real estate services. They were just putting the data on the map and they were referring out the business to agents back then. And then they wanted to launch what we called Redfin Direct, which was actually, was it, there's so many words. I'm pretty sure it was Redfin Direct. Anyway, it was the Redfin brokerage. So it was going to be a model where they got the houses on the website. There's going to be a buy button. You buy the house, you get a huge commission refund, and they needed somebody to run that. So I came in and I was the first agent there running that program. And it was complete chaos.
So there still were not realtors involved.
Well, I was the realtor.
But it was more kind of that database type of a technology play versus something for realtors that had a code of ethics and
correct. Yeah, it was a direct to consumer play of, hey, we're going to put houses on a map. So first company to put houses on a map, and we're going to put a buy button on it. And if you want to buy it, we're going to give you a huge commission refund. Hey, side note, we're not going to show you the house. We'll just help you buy it.
Yeah, no
and
agent,
so
you have to just drive by.
Yeah. So it's like, go to the open house or call the listing agent. It turns out was not well received in the industry. We got constantly yelled at all day, every day. And everybody hated us.
By realtors or brokerages?
All the fellow realtors. Correct. And consumers loved it because they're like, oh, we're going to get all this rebate, all this stuff. It's great. So we got a lot of demand out of the gate. We staffed up, grew the business. We realized we couldn't run a business without actually going out in the field to show houses. We hired a bunch of field agents to help show houses to satisfy that demand. And as we were building it, like the internal message was always, hey, it's not about the rebate, it's about the service. So we were trying to create this technology-enabled service where consumers can get the information they want and then have it delivered, end to end with an agent at some cost savings. And the industry reputation was terrible. Even though we improved that industry relationship over the years, everybody still remembered the old days. So there were instances, we had instances where people would like chop down our for sale signs, call and yell at us, all kinds of complete chaos. But all of that ended up actually getting us on 60 Minutes. So I had a brief cameo on 60 Minutes.
Wow. And they say any promotion is good promotion, right?
All press is good press. Yeah. Absolutely. And, the company evolved over time. So I was there about 5 years, left in 2010, at the end of 2010. At that point, it was more about the agents delivering service. The rebates started getting smaller and smaller up till recently. Fast forward to recently, now there's no buy-side rebate. They do keep promoting a discounted listing service, but there's nothing on the buy side now. And they fully go show houses. Matter of fact, I think they show too many houses because it's too easy to click the schedule a tour button. So I even have clients that call me and say, hey, I want to go see a house. It says we can go see it at 3:00 on Redfin. I'm like, look, that's marketing. That's not actually real. Like the house is like where we are, we use something called showing time and there's a calendar for the house. Yeah, and I can load it up and show them like, look, the house is not actually available. There's a tenant in there. We can't go at 3:00. That's called marketing.
Or something else.
What's that?
Or something else.
Exactly. Yeah, so I left Redfin, went with another person from Redfin at the time who was doing another startup, sort of real estate adjacent. It was more in the residential energy efficiency space. I helped them out for a couple of years building out their kind of professional services organization. So that was kind of a little bit jump back to the previous career, but sort of still still dealing with houses.
Yeah, absolutely. You, my friend, are an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
You really, I can see that kind of, there's a risk. I don't know if it's more than a risk tolerance. It's kind of a risk magnet in terms of, like, I did not get a phone call from your family to say that. No, really, but things that seem to excite you. Yeah. And we talk on this show about catalysts for change. So I want to kind of touch base between those jumps, like that jump from realizing that maybe Redfin maybe was not going in a direction that you felt was where you wanted to continue. Am I reading something into that maybe wasn't there or whatever? But then was there a surprising catalyst that had you move from that space into, was it just another startup or was the energy piece something that was very exciting to you?
A combination of the above. Part of it was like reflecting back on it was definitely, there's an inflection point at a company where it gets big enough where it's no longer of interest or as exciting. And with that comes, too many people, too much structure.
Layers of HR.
Or HR, or a diverging path on the business that's not what you signed up for, right? Because like early days in a company, you're trying to accomplish more of a mission than a job. And then as a company grows, it becomes more of a job. So it was becoming more of a job. and in a direction that wasn't as exciting as it was back when people were chopping our signs down and yelling at us. Not that I like getting yelled at.
You were on the cutting edge of something.
We were, yeah,
You were disrupting. You were disrupting. And I
Yeah.
hear a disruptor is kind of,
yeah, I would say more bleeding edge, but
but it's really enjoying the gratification that comes with knowing you're a disruptor. You know, I mean,
And
that
it's just-
my brokerage for sure.
yeah, and it makes it every day you're not fully sure what's going to happen every day. There's always some element of surprise.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, we were saying we will not talk about the current situation going on in the world of real estate right now, but that also is a place where people cannot keep saying, we've always done it this way. Well, right, that, but we have to do it a different way now for sure. So you were in the energy space. Tell us, but it was adjacent, as you said, you know, real estate adjacent.
Yeah.
What was a surprising or a catalyst that kind of brought you back out of that startup into your next stone that you jumped on?
Yeah, then we're jumping from one startup to another startup. So the Redfin founder, Davey Rocker, had an idea for another real estate startup. So he reached out to me and was like, hey, I got the next idea. And, you know, at the energy efficiency company, again, it was starting to grow, become a little bit more of a job, less startup-y. So it was like the ideal time to jump over to a new startup. And this was pure startup. So it was just basically me and David. We had one other co-founder, and we were in a tiny office putting together this idea of, I mean, the easiest way to describe it is Matterport before Matterport.
Okay.
So we built a way to build immersive 3D home tours before or around the same time as Matterport. They were way better capitalized than us and had way better resources and were able to move faster than us and get to market. And what we did, again, back to the disruption side, is we were like, hey, we're trying to solve the last mile problem in real estate, which is that home tour problem. So people need to get into houses to make a decision. But a lot of times they get there and you got the misleading marketing photos. Then you get to the house and you're like, what?
I feel like you're still bringing that past, oh, shoot, we never sold any property in the first Redfin, right? Like that was a piece that was missing. So you guys must have been always talking about how do we simplify that? Although it sounds like you were continuing to look for ways to cut the agent out. Stop me if I'm wrong, but that's...
Yes, there's we're in the arc of the narrative here.
Go ahead.
So this turned out building this technology to make it easier for people to get access to the house. And then at the same token, the idea was that Redfin was for buyers because it was houses on a map, made it easy access to see houses. This company was called Surefield, and like our kind of joke was Surefield's for sellers. And so this is a tool where we're going to enable you as a seller to better market your house with this immersive 3D tour. Again, pre-Matterport. So today, this is table stakes. Everybody's got Matterport. Like, it's just the way it works. And so we're sliding into 2013 to 2015-ish timeframe.
And still FSBO focused.
No,
still consumer focused.
Still consumer focused. Yep. Still business to consumer focused. Our target were home sellers that were looking to sell for basically cut agents out. So the idea was, hey, seller, we're going to charge you this, fee to sell. It's going to include a very small buyer broker compensation, and we're going to get your house sold. And the technology is going to help reduce the overhead of people in your house and bring more qualified people. So it's an overall lower cost transaction. We sold, I don't remember, 50, 100 houses. It was an uphill battle. Like it was.
Were you just in your local market? How had you?
We were just in our local market. We were trying to get basically proof of concept, get people to see that there was a way to transact, and then start scaling up from there. But it was we were working on two distinct things, which is very hard for a very small team. And those two things were this technology stack with home tours. So we had a co-founder and then some part-time people, engineers working on the technology problem. Hard to move very fast. We made amazing progress. I mean, it was pretty cool what we ended up with. But again, like Matterport was way better funded, was able to move way faster. And then we were also trying to build a real estate business around this, using this technology and this model to essentially reduce real estate fees. And then you can imagine how excited you can imagine how excited agents were when they loaded up a listing and saw that it was, a $2,000 buyer broker compensation. And no one was doing something like this at the time, right? So again, back to our state, we're a broker co-op multiple listing service. So we always have been able to offer whatever compensation we want. There's no requirements in there. Not there is anywhere, but like there have been a lot of businesses out of Seattle pushing the envelope on that for years. And ours was exceptionally low. And now I was back to getting phone calls of people yelling at me again, just like I was at Redfin, threatening to not sell the house, yelling and screaming.
Full circle.
And we sold the houses. It was uphill. It was hard. It was a lot of work convincing other agents to even go see them, talking through other agents about how they could negotiate different compensation with their buyers.
Hard on a good day. Yeah.
Which is hard on a good day. And this isn't a time, again, this is
Yeah.
almost 10 years ago. Whereas like fast forward today, it's in the news every day.
Yeah,
It's
today
like,
it would be part of the regular conversation,
It's part of
and
the
it will be,
conversation.
and it will be a model. You were 10 years too soon.
Yeah. So it was really hard. There was a lot of yelling.
And so was that the catalyst for the next kind of like, I've had enough of this?
Yeah, so that's where now we hit the arc of the narrative. It's like, okay, I think I figured it out. It turns out
I don't have to get yelled at all the time to be happy.
I don't have to get yelled at every day. I'm a very slow learner, it turns out. But it turns out, yes, you don't have to get yelled at every day. It turns out there are people who, number one, there's great clients out there who really value really, really good service. And there are clients who want to work with the Redfins of the world. They want to work with the Surefields of the world. And I finally realized there's enough pie for everyone. Everybody has something specific they want. And all the time I spent in, say, Redfin or Surefield, I was focused on this, limited pie or whatever the word is. There's just not enough business for everybody. And then all of a sudden I realized this abundance mindset where
so let me dig into that for a second. So you realize that during that whole time you were more from a lack mentality, thinking that there wasn't enough and that people didn't want to pay for services and people were thrilled to not pay for things, right?
Yeah.
That attracts a certain clientele and a certain energy. Absolutely. Yeah. Right. I mean, Redfin of the world versus an EXP Luxury or Sotheby's or something, that's a very different clientele. So what was that? Can you remember like a pivotal moment when that light went on to like, hey, this abundance perspective might actually feel better for me and be more financially and personally gratifying?
Yeah, totally. So there's a couple things that stick out. One is I had a colleague at Redfin, the first agent I hired there, actually. She always had this saying that was, it's easier to catch bees with honey than vinegar. And it was funny. She used to always say this as we're getting screamed at on the phone. And I started thinking about that and I was like, that's interesting. And as I started working with there were a couple of clients I was working with who just started really valuing the insight I had from my years of experience, engineering background, and also just like home remodeling background. And they found it like amazingly valuable. And I was like, wait a second. I bring a lot to the table and these people are really nice. And this is like 10 times more fun when everyone's in alignment and happy about what they're doing and not focusing on the positive outcome and how they can get there. Whereas I felt like in the past, I had been trying to solve a problem that may or may not needed to be solved with a group of people who had an axe to grind. And
ouch.
So it's like a mindset shift. So then I kind of split up with my business partner there at Surefield and started this brokerage, Bushwick, and just went out on my own and was starting to work with a couple of clients. And I met a client, a buyer I was working with, and they're like, "Oh, hey, and here's our lender." And I was like, "Oh man, I don't want your lender. Like I have people that I work with. We're going to have a great experience. I want you to have an amazing experience. I don't want your lender, but whatever." Lender calls me. That's who they're working with. And we go through the transaction. I was like, wow, she's really good. And then she follows up with me and then we start talking and all of a sudden she's bringing more of this abundance mindset to me. And so she's sort of the catalyst to introducing me to more of this mindset and growing the business. Actually, she's been instrumental in my business over the last, I don't know, what are we, like 8 years now or
That's
something.
awesome.
But yeah, it's been amazing.
Yeah, inspired people inspire
Mhm.
people for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
So it sounds like, so one of the questions I'd love to ask people is, what's a piece of advice that really changed your life? And it sounds like, certainly from the gal from Redfin, about you get more flies with honey than with vinegar. My grandma used to say that. So that's just a great saying
100%.
that's so true that we can
Yep.
certainly pass down. Was there something that this colleague that you've been with for 8 years, is there a piece of advice that she shared with you that you feel that tapped into that abundance mindset? What an awesome story. This was really great.
Well, I think, as woo woo as it sounds, like manifesting what it is you want, like that's her cliche almost. So she leads an amazing abundance life. And, we kind of joke about her manifesting stuff, but we helped her buy a second home that she calls the Grand Manifest. She has a boat that the name of the boat is the Manifest, which is actually really funny
That's
because boat
awesome.
names
Yeah,
are
great
always a
boat
play
name.
on
Yeah.
word.
Oh, boat
And
names are there should be more coffee table books just with boat names, because
yeah, totally.
we boat here. I'm on Cape Cod. We boat here. And one of the most fun things I do in the whole world is to always make note of all the boat names, which are too funny.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's always, whenever we talk to each other, it's always about what are we going to manifest next? And,
Well,
and she,
Napoleon Hill,
yeah.
Think and Grow Rich. I mean, I think the 40s or maybe even earlier than that. I mean, this is not like this. The Secret has been around for a very
Oh
long
my
time.
God. So the first time I read that book, I don't know, it was a couple of years ago, I was reading it. And I'm like, weird. When was this written? Because the way he was talking about stuff, I'm like, man,
Oldie.
was this like '08? That must have been '08. And I flipped back. Yeah, it was like the 30s or 40s. I was like, what on earth is going on? This is insane.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's always been out there. And I think surrounding yourself with those types of people, and also people that are just doing much, much better than you. So she introduced me into this coaching environment a couple of years ago that I participated with for a while, and just surrounding yourself with other people that are doing huge things. And it makes you see, number one, what's possible. So that, because you have these blinders on of what's possible. And then when you see other people doing huge things, you can do way more.
Yeah, for sure. That's amazing. Thank you so much for showing us this an amazing trajectory of where you started, where you've been. And I didn't expect that. I didn't know this was where we were going at all, but kind of how that completely transformed into that mindset shift from lack to abundance in a lot of very profound and maybe looking back rather obvious ways, but at the time I'm sure it wasn't, and you were doing the best you could, but struggling, and living in that environment of lack is, well, the things you're attracting is from manifesting, right? That just like, that's in and of
No,
itself like not a
and
very happy space.
yeah, I mean, it's funny now that you say that back. That's exactly what I realized without really realizing, is that I was just making more of the
Yeah.
unhappy stuff, whereas you can also attract happier stuff and have a way better business too. Like today, our business is all, we're 100% referral based, repeat and referral based. All of our clients are absolutely amazing. We love doing stuff with them. And my desk is covered right now. Like I just did my Mother's Day thing, which I kind of
I
like.
saw that. I saw that in your Facebook. Yeah, that was great. That came from your newsletter or something, for people to print that out, or
Yeah. So these we design and print it out, and then I like handwrite and send them out to them.
Got it.
And then I do a newsletter as well. So this is like I'm not good at consistently doing most things except for this one thing. So we are at like week 393
Nice.
or
Wow.
4
Wow. That's a
Fridays in a
lot. That's
row.
great.
So
That's
I
great.
have sent this from vacations. I've sent this in like remote huts. I've sent it from campgrounds. Like it
You know
just
what? You have to make sure you put that in the chat, and I'll make sure I put that in the show notes, or we'll contact you, because I
okay.
want to make sure for the show notes that your email newsletter for people to subscribe for sure. And I
Yeah.
will do that as well. I'm sure it's beyond just your local, there's all kinds
Yeah,
of.
so totally. It's a labor of love. I spend way too much time doing it. But what I do is I only write it on Friday mornings. So I wake up as early as I can, make a lot of coffee. I sit down. Usually I like flopped on my couch, and I literally just write for until I send it. And so you could see the send times, which is usually around somewhere between 10:30 and 11:30 is usually when it goes out. And so I usually start around 6 to 7.
Wow,
So
that is a labor
it's
of love,
like,
sir.
yeah, it's a lot. But what it is, I go through, I digest the news, real estate news of the week. I give my commentary on it. And then we talk about what went on in the market, in our local market that week. Like literally, I call it notes from the field, which is what we did in the trenches. And it serves as number one, a good reminder for me of what went on, but also people kind of like to hear what's actually happening. They like to dish the dirt. So, we give them an update on bidding wars and that kind of stuff. And then we do some stats, and then we plug our listings, of course, because we have to. But that's all the way at the bottom. And so it actually ends up being pretty long. Most people don't read, very much at all. Matter of fact, everyone tells me it's too long. But what I found is some people like different sections. So some people will just scroll down to the gossip from the field type thing and read that. And then other people will do the home tour, like we'll do a video home tour of some random houses. And so there's something for everybody, but it takes a lot of work to do. But it's kind of fun.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
now we got the streak
helps
growing.
you. It also helps you. It sounds like it helps you scratch a creative itch that you have,
Yeah.
that like to kind of to do that, and maybe you'll innovate some amazing tool for doing your newsletter. And since you're still probably an entrepreneur at heart,
And so people are like, oh, just have ChatGPT do it. So I've tried to have like, hey, write this. And I can't get AI to write anything that sounds like intelligent. To me, it all sounds like really bad marketing remarks. But what I do use it for, and I think it's an amazing tool, is proofreading, like grammar checking. So for example, like I'll put a paragraph in and say, hey, give me a list of grammar errors. And it'll pick stuff out that are clearly not spelling errors, but they made it past the regular spell and grammar check. And I'm like, whoa, that's a little scary. It is awesome for that.
I sometimes utilize it also for ideas for something. Give me some ideas about a blog post for opening your summer cottage. I don't know, I just made that up. But, I definitely have done stuff like that. I have used it. I've never used anything verbatim because it doesn't sound. And then I've asked it to do it. Okay, do that again. Do that again. Do that again. Do that in a more casual voice. Do that in a feminine voice, And then when my assistant gives me something, I'll go, was that from ChatGPT? Like, I always tell there's such a red, because I mean, God bless, he lives in the Philippines. And I know he doesn't sound like that, but I can tell immediately when the majority of whatever he's written is a ChatGPT for sure,
Oh, 100%.
Well, we've kind of come to the end of today's episode.
Okay.
This was amazing.
Awesome.
I so enjoyed this. Let me ask you one of my final questions, which I love. Tell me what's the best, most uplifting compliment you've ever received, and tell us why it was so uplifting to you.
Oh man, that is hard.
One of the best. Let's say one of the best, not the best, if that's helpful.
The best compliment. Actually, I was just thinking about this the other day. So a friend of mine, it's kind of real estate related, but he called me out of the blue, just got a divorce, and he was just got a divorce, was going to find a new house to buy, calls me up and out of the blue, and he's like, hey man, you're my agent. I'm so excited you're helping me. And I was just like, and it was just amazing to be like, oh, without even having to question it, it was just like, you're the guy. And so that's one I could think of.
So tell me why that made you feel why that was so uplifting to you.
I just feel like all the time we're always fighting for the business or really working hard to get the business. And so to have somebody come to you and be like, I've already selected you and I'm super excited to be working with you. And you're the guy that I'm hitching my cart to up front without even having any conversation about it. Again, I think it goes back to that manifesting it.
I was going to say, Rob, you manifested that, my friend. I was going to say that. Well, thank you very much. You did manifest that. I think we both manifested this really great podcast. I've thoroughly enjoyed our time together. And I thank you again for your contributions, for sure. I know our paths will cross again. And
awesome.
I look forward to that. Thank you so much again.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much, Lisa.
Thank you for joining us today on another absolutely inspiring and amazing episode of Lifting Others as We Rise. I hope you're going to calendar some time to consider some ways that you might think about how could you shift your outlook from one of a little bit of lack to more abundance and manifest. That was one of the things that we really, that continued to really unfurl as I had this amazing conversation with Rob. He talked about, and not even realizing it, how he was really attracting all of that lack for so many years. Fun startups, interesting, but they were always almost having a solution, looking for a problem. And then that all shifted when he started to realize there was enough pie for everyone to go around. So how could you shift a little bit to open yourself up and welcome more abundance into your life. If you enjoyed today's insights, please be sure to subscribe, rate this episode, and leave a review. Your feedback really matters. Until the next episode, keep the positivity flowing. And remember, when we make an effort to lift others up with intention, we all rise together. This is Lisa Parenteau signing off from Lifting Others as We Rise. Take good care.